The world knew Ace Frehley as Kiss's legendary space ace, the silver-faced guitar hero who commanded arenas with smoking Les Pauls and pyrotechnic fury. But at 2 in the morning, in his Connecticut mansion, stripped of makeup and fame, Paul Daniel Frehley stood frozen at the top of his staircase, watching two people he cared about tear their 25-year marriage apart. The woman's voice echoed through the marble halls with a rage that cut deeper than any guitar feedback he had ever created. "Get out of my house, Richard. Get out of my life." Sarah Martinez stood in the middle of Ace's living room, her face streaked with tears, pointing an accusing finger at her husband like a weapon. 25 years, she screamed, her voice cracking with betrayal. 25 years of your lies. She threw her wedding ring across the room where it bounced off Ace's Gibson Les Paul collection case with a sharp metallic ping that seemed to hang in the air forever. Richard Martinez, a man Ace had known since his early solo days in the late 80s, stood defeated, shoulders slumped, holding a crumpled piece of paper that had apparently detonated their entire world. But what was written on that paper would reveal a secret that even Ace Frehley, who had lived through rock and roll's darkest excesses, had never imagined possible. Ace gripped the mahogany banister tighter, his heart breaking as he witnessed the complete devastation of what had once been the happiest couple he knew. Just 12 hours earlier, the Martinez couple had arrived at his mansion for what was supposed to be a celebration of their silver wedding anniversary. A surprise gift Ace had arranged after learning they could never afford such luxury on their modest income. Now everything was falling apart, and the space ace, the man who had survived Kiss's internal wars, Gene Simmons's control, Paul Stanley's ambitions, and his own demons with alcohol and addiction, felt utterly helpless. Sarah and Richard Martinez had been childhood friends from the Bronx, the same working-class neighborhood where young Paul Frehley had grown up before becoming Ace, before the silver makeup, before the smoking guitars, before Madison Square Garden and platinum albums. They had married young in 1987, the same year Ace had formed Frehley's Comet and was fighting his way back from the darkness of his Kiss departure. Richard had always been quiet and hard-working, a construction foreman who reminded Ace of his own father. Sarah was vibrant and warm, a woman who had organized community events in their Bronx neighborhood and had never forgotten where she came from. "Mr. Frehley," Sarah had said that morning when they arrived, her eyes bright with excitement as she admired the mansion's interior where gold and platinum records lined the walls. "I still can't believe we're really here. Richard has been saving for this trip for 3 years." Richard had smiled shyly, his weathered construction worker hands fidgeting with his jacket. "Sarah's been talking about visiting you since she first heard New York Groove on the radio back in '78. I wanted to make her dreams come true for our anniversary." Ace had embraced them both, genuinely moved to see these good people finally able to experience something special. He had given them the full tour, showing them his collection of vintage Les Pauls, the Gibson guitars that had survived every era of his career, from Kiss's golden age through his darkest addiction years to his solo renaissance. He had played some unreleased tracks in his home studio while Sarah wept with joy. And he had shared stories about the old Bronx neighborhood, about learning guitar in his bedroom, about the journey from Paul Daniel Frehley to Space Ace and back again. The day had been perfect until dinner. They had been sitting in the dining room sharing stories and laughing over Ace's famous grilled steaks when a young man appeared at the front door. He was maybe 25 years old, tall and lean with Richard's exact same build and jawline. The security system had buzzed, and Ace's assistant had appeared looking confused. There's a young man here asking for Richard Martinez. He says it's urgent, says it's about family. When Richard saw the young man through the doorway, all color drained from his face in a way that reminded Ace of the worst moments in Kiss's history. Those backstage confrontations, when everything you thought was solid, suddenly shattered. The young man introduced himself as Marcus Delgado, and he carried with him not just a letter, but a truth that would destroy everything. Ace listened from the staircase as the story unfolded like a slow-motion car crash. 26 years ago, before Richard married Sarah, he had a brief relationship with another woman, a woman he met while working construction in Manhattan. When she became pregnant, Richard panicked. He was young, barely 21, scared, and already deeply in love with Sarah, whom he had been dating on and off. The woman, claiming she didn't want to trap him, claiming she wanted him to be free to live his life, had left New York without telling Richard she was pregnant. For 25 years, Richard Martinez had no idea he had a son. Marcus Delgado had grown up in California believing his father was dead, killed in a construction accident before he was born. That was the story his mother had told him, a lie built from love and sacrifice. It was only when Marcus's mother passed away the previous month that she left him a letter with the truth. She had loved Richard enough to let him go, believing he would be happier with Sarah. But she had also loved their son enough to leave him away to find his father if he ever wanted to. So you see, Sarah said through her tears after Marcus left, and Richard explained everything, her voice hollow with shock. Our entire marriage has been built on a lie. You had a child with another woman and you never told me. How many other secrets are you keeping, Richard? Richard pleaded, his voice breaking. Sarah, I swear to you I didn't know. I never knew. Elena, that was her name. She left. She just disappeared. I tried to find her for weeks. I thought maybe I had done something wrong. I never knew she was pregnant. But Sarah was beyond hearing, beyond reason. The shock of learning her husband had a 25-year-old son, a son who was actually older than their marriage by a year, had shattered her world completely. Every memory was now contaminated with doubt. Every anniversary, every promise, every moment of trust now felt like it had been built on sand. As Ace watched the scene unfold from the staircase, he thought about his own history with secrets and lies. He remembered the Kiss years, the way decisions were made without his knowledge, the way the business side of rock and roll was filled with deceptions and hidden agendas. Slowly, Ace descended the staircase. His bare feet made no sound on the carpet, but both Richard and Sarah looked up at him with embarrassment and shame written across their faces. I'm sorry, Ace, Sarah said, wiping her eyes with shaking hands. We shouldn't be doing this in your home. No, Ace said quietly, his voice carrying that gentle authority that had commanded stadium crowds. You'll leave when this is fixed, not before. He walked over to where Sarah's wedding ring lay on the floor beside his guitar collection case and picked it up. The simple gold band caught the soft light from the chandelier above. Sarah, Ace said, how old were you when you met Richard? 17, she answered, confused by the question. And Richard, how old were you? 18, Richard replied. Ace nodded thoughtfully. So you were just kids, both of you. And Richard, this relationship you had with Elena, when was it? I was 20, Richard admitted. The summer before Sarah and I got engaged. Ace sat down, still holding the ring. So let me get this straight. A 20-year-old kid had a brief relationship with a woman who left town without telling him she was pregnant. And you're ready to throw away 25 years because of something Richard didn't even know about? It's not about what happened then. Sarah's anger flared. It's about trust. What lies? Ace asked gently. Richard just told you he didn't know about Marcus. How can you blame him for lying about something he didn't know existed? Ace walked to the window, looking out at the Connecticut landscape where dawn was just beginning to hint. Sarah, in all these 25 years, has Richard ever given you a reason not to trust him? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. No, she finally whispered. Has he ever lied to you about anything else? No. Has he been a good husband? Tears began flowing again. Yes, she said. He's been everything I ever wanted. I've been in this business long enough to see every kind of relationship you can imagine, Ace said. I've seen people lie and cheat and betray each other in ways that would break your heart. I've done some of those things myself. He walked over to Richard. Do you love your wife more than anything? More than life itself, Richard said without hesitation. And Sarah, Ace turned to her. Do you love your husband? Yes, she sobbed. But how can I trust him now? Let me tell you something about trust, Ace said, sitting beside Sarah. Trust isn't about never having secrets. Trust is about believing in someone's heart even when their past isn't perfect. He handed her the wedding ring. This young man, Marcus, he's not your enemy. He's an innocent person who just found out his whole life story was different than he thought. And Richard didn't betray you. He was betrayed too, by a woman who made a choice without giving him a say. Sarah stared at the ring. I don't know how to move past this. It doesn't have to feel different, Ace said. What if instead of seeing this as an ending, you saw it as a beginning? You've got a stepson you never knew you had, a young man who needs family. When I left KISS in '82, I felt like I was losing my identity. The Space Ace character had taken over. I had to figure out who I was without that makeup. It was terrifying and liberating. I learned that the real me was stronger than the character ever was. He has your hands, Sarah whispered. Marcus, he has your smile. He's yours, Richard. Yeah, Richard smiled through tears. He is, and I lost 25 years with him. But I don't want to lose you too. Love isn't about being perfect, Ace said. It's about being real. Sarah stood slowly, still holding the ring. If we do this, I want to meet him properly. I want to know Marcus. I'd like that too, Richard said. I'd like us all to be a family. Sarah slipped the wedding ring back on her finger. The next morning, Ace found them sitting together on his deck, holding hands. Feeling better? Different, Sarah said. But better. We called Marcus, Richard added. He's driving up this afternoon. Sarah wants to cook dinner for him. That sounds perfect, Ace said. Ace, Sarah said, I need to apologize for last night. Nothing to apologize for. Ace waved his hand. The important thing is what you choose to do next. We're choosing love, Richard said. We're choosing family. That afternoon, Marcus returned. This time he was Sarah and Richard's son, coming home to meet his family. Ace watched as Sarah hugged the young man, as Richard showed him photographs, as three people began becoming family. 6 months later, Ace received a letter. Marcus had moved to Yonkers. Sarah had become the mother he always dreamed of. Richard had found joy he never knew was missing. The letter included a photo that Ace placed on his piano. On the back, Sarah had written, "Thank you for teaching us that love isn't about having a perfect story. It's about choosing to keep writing the story together."